It's funny how the people you'd walk through fire for are often the ones who light the match. My name is Emily Monroe. I'm 32 years old, a second-grade teacher living in the misty suburbs of Seattle. And last Thanksgiving, I learned just how disposable I really was. It started with a single text message. A text that shattered a lifetime of illusions. Let me take you back. Thanksgiving had always been a sacred ritual in my family. Every year, we gathered at my parents' old craftsman home just outside of the city. My mom bustling around the kitchen. My dad carving the turkey with surgical precision. My younger brother Jason cracking inappropriate jokes that made Grandma Monroe blush and swatted him with her napkin. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Or so I thought. That morning I woke early, the rain tapping lightly against the windows, and pulled out the pumpkin pie I'd baked the night before. It was a Monroe tradition. Emily brings the pie. I carefully wrapped it up, tied a ribbon around the carrier, and even tucked a little handwritten card into my purse. Thankful for family, it said in loopy, earnest cursive. At 9:30, as I was slipping on my boots by the door, my phone buzzed. I smiled, expecting it to be my mom checking when I'd arrive. Instead, the message read, "Hey Em. With the weather looking rough, we decided to cancel this year. Stay warm and safe. Love you." I blinked at the screen. Then read it again. Cancelled. No call. No, come over anyway. Just a flat, sterile cancellation, like I was an event they were politely backing out of. Outside, the rain was steady but mild. No storm warnings. No power outages. Just a typical gray Seattle drizzle. Something felt off. Still, I tried to shake it off. I set the pie down on the counter, lit a cinnamon-scented candle, curled up under my grandmother's old quilt, and flipped on the Macy's parade. It was fine. I was fine. Or at least, kept telling myself that. Around noon, as the parade wrapped up and the house grew oppressively quiet, I found myself scrolling absently through Facebook. That's when I saw it. Photo. My brother Jason, laughing with a drumstick in one hand and a glass of wine in the other. My parents smiling wide, seated at the head of a long, beautifully decorated dining table. Golden turkey, mashed potatoes heaped high, candles flickering warmly, and surrounding them, every family member I loved, except me. I stared at the screen, my mouth dry. The caption read, "So grateful to be together again. Family is everything. Poultry leg glowing star, asterisk asterisk." A slow, hollow ache unfurled in my chest. Kept scrolling. More photos. More smiles. More memories being made. Memories I wasn't part of. The final blow. A group selfie. Everyone squeezed together, laughing, arms thrown around each other, with Jason's caption, "Wouldn't be Thanksgiving without all the people who matter most." All the people who matter most. And I, apparently, wasn't one of them. I set my phone down with shaking hands. The pie sat on the counter, untouched, the scent of nutmeg and cinnamon turning my stomach. The candle flickered weakly. I wrapped the quilt tighter around myself, but it couldn't block the cold settling deep into my bones. Hours passed in a strange, numb blur. I barely noticed the afternoon fade into night. Around 7 p.m., my mom called. I watched the phone ring, her smiling contact photo lighting up the screen, and let it go to voicemail. Couldn't. Not yet. Not when every fiber of me was still trying to stitch itself back together. The next day she texted, "Missed you yesterday, sweetheart. Hope you had a relaxing day." Glowing star asterisk asterisk. Relaxing. I laughed, a short, bitter sound that didn't feel like mine. It would have been easier if they'd just told me the truth. If they'd said, "We didn't want you there." Because the lie. That was worse. It said, "We wanted you gone so badly. We built a world without you." And then smiled for the cameras. I didn't respond. For the first time in my life, I didn't rush to make it right. I didn't apologize for their betrayal. I let the silence grow. And deep inside, where the cracks had started forming, something stronger, something fiercer, something free, began to take root. The day after Christmas, I sat in my tiny kitchen, stirring a spoon in my coffee long after it had gone cold. The silence in my apartment pressed against my ears. Thick, heavy, suffocating. I replayed the phone call with my mom in my mind. Over and over. Each time feeling the same sting. I wasn't just forgotten. I was erased. The worst part wasn't even the dinner itself. It was the casual way they spoke to me after, like nothing had happened. As if I didn't deserve an apology. As if my hurt wasn't even real. That night, lying awake in bed, I stared at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above me. Its rhythmic whirring the only sound in the dark. And somewhere between one blink and the next, something hardened inside me. I wasn't going to chase them anymore. I wasn't going to beg for scraps of affection. Not from people who thought so little of me. But it wasn't just about cutting ties. I needed to understand. I needed to know if this was a one-time betrayal, or if my whole life had been built on this quiet cruelty. The next morning I grabbed a notebook and started writing. Memories poured out faster than I could catch them. Snapshots from birthdays where Anna's cake was triple layered and mine was store-bought. Family trips where I was left behind because of schoolwork they said mattered more. The more I wrote, the more a pattern emerged. It wasn't forgetfulness. It wasn't bad timing. It was deliberate. Methodical. A lifetime of being pushed aside. I couldn't sit on it. Not anymore. Oh, I started digging. First, I combed through family group chats. The ones where I'd been strangely left out of certain conversations. Then, old emails, where last-minute changes to family plans just happened. Always ending up at Anna's house instead of anywhere neutral. I even went to my father's old Facebook page. Something he barely used but still updated once in a while. And there it was. Photos of 4th of July barbecues. Easter brunches. Even random Saturday gatherings. All without me. All the same sunny smiles. Same clinking glasses. Same excuses afterward about things being spontaneous and, you were probably busy anyway. Hit me like a slap. Not only had they excluded me, they had gotten good at it. Each omission had been masked with a lie. Until they built a world where I didn't exist. Unless they needed something. A sinking feeling twisted in my stomach. But I kept going. I needed more. I needed to see it with my own eyes. Oh, I decided to visit Anna's house. Not to confront them, not yet, but just to look. To really see the life I was excluded from. The next Sunday afternoon, I drove through the familiar winding streets of Brentwood, where Anna lived in a sprawling white colonial, a gift from my parents when she outgrew her apartment. I parked across the street, my hands clammy against the steering wheel. From my car, I could see the wide bay windows, the glittering chandelier in the dining room, the manicured lawn my father still paid for every month. And I saw them, through the window. My parents, Anna, her husband Eric, their kids, all gathered around the fireplace, sipping cocoa, laughing. The same scene I had once believed included me. The same lie. Playing out again. Just without the effort of pretending anymore. I sat there, breathing shallowly, the ache in my chest burning like a live coal. But I didn't cry. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. Cool. Clinical. If they wanted a life without me so badly, then it was time I gave them exactly what they wanted. Only, on my terms. I pulled out my phone and started making a new plan. Not to lash out, not to destroy them, but to build a life so far beyond their petty betrayals. They wouldn't even be a footnote in my story. The first thing I did was block them. Every number, every group chat, every social media account. Silence at first felt like a gaping wound, like something vital had been torn away. Then, started to feel like peace. I spent New Year's Eve alone by choice. Not curled up in hurt this time, but in quiet determination. I made a list. A real one. scribbled messily into a battered journal I'd had since college. The top I wrote, "Things I will no longer apologize for." Underneath I listed them: being quiet, being careful, choosing my career, saying no, walking away. I didn't know it yet, but that list would become the blueprint for everything that came next. By February I'd started therapy. A small office in downtown Nashville. Soft lighting. Bookshelves packed with dog-eared volumes. My therapist's name was Elise. And she never once looked at me like I was being too sensitive. Instead, she listened. And every time I tried to explain away my family's behavior, every time I tried to minimize the hurt, she would gently stop me and say, "Catherine, your feelings are valid." The first time she said it, I cried harder than I had on Christmas morning. Not because I was sad, but because, maybe for the first time in my life, someone believed me without trying to edit the story. We worked through it, week after week. The patterns of neglect, the emotional manipulation disguised as love. The way I'd been trained to accept less because I thought that was all I was worth. And slowly, so slowly, the heavy guilt I'd been carrying like a second skin began to crack, peel away, fall off in pieces. But healing wasn't enough. I needed to rebuild. Oh, I made another list. This time titled, "Things I Will Build for Myself." I wrote, a home filled with people who choose me. Career that excites me, not just pays the bills. Traditions that nourish me, even if I have to invent them alone. I started small. I adopted a scrappy little rescue dog from the local shelter. A wiry terrier mix with one floppy ear and eyes too big for his face. I named him Lucky, 'cause that's what it felt like. Not lucky that they had left me, but lucky that I could finally live without begging for their approval. Spring came. And with it something unexpected. One morning in March, as I was sipping coffee at my favorite little cafe, I heard a voice call my name. "Catherine." And there was Leah, an old college friend I hadn't seen in years. She hugged me tightly, laughed at how crazy it was to bump into each other. And within minutes, it felt like no time had passed at all. Over lattes and blueberry scones we caught up. She told me about her art gallery opening downtown. How she'd finally chased her dream after years of corporate slog. I told her, carefully, about everything. Not the sanitized version I'd once given strangers. The real story. Raw and shaky, but honest. And instead of looking uncomfortable, instead of changing the subject, she reached across the table, squeezed my hand and said, "You deserved better." Something warm bloomed in my chest. Not pity, not sympathy, recognition. That afternoon, Leah texted me an invitation. "Gallery soft opening, friends and family welcome. You have to come." For a second, my thumb hovered over the screen. Friends and family. The old me would have hesitated, would have wondered if I even counted. But not anymore. I texted back. Wouldn't miss it for the world. The gallery was beautiful. Soft music filled the air. Warm lamplight glowed against the exposed brick walls, and colorful canvases stretched out like open arms. As I walked through the space, something shifted inside me. Here was a world where I wasn't a burden, wasn't an afterthought, wasn't an obligation. I was simply welcome. Leah introduced me to her friends, artists, writers, dreamers, and by the end of the night, I had more genuine conversations than I'd had in the last 5 Christmases combined. It was a small beginning, but it was mine. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel like I was standing outside the window, looking in. I was finally inside. I was finally home. The call came in early May, a number I hadn't saved, but one I knew by heart. It was Anna. For a moment, I considered letting it ring, letting the past stay in the past, letting her words slide into voicemail purgatory where they belonged. But something inside me said, "Not this time." Picked up Her voice was sugary sweet at first. "Catherine. Hey. It's been a while." I waited. "Listen," she continued, a forced laugh bubbling up. "We're having a little family barbecue next weekend. Memorial Day and all. And everyone thought it would be great if you came. You know, clear the air." I almost laughed. Clear the air. After everything. After lies. Betrayal. The loneliness they'd gift wrap for me last Christmas. "Oh," said calmly. "I'll think about it." 'Cause I already had a plan. That week I prepared. Not by buying potato salad or digging out a lawn chair. Well, I gathered everything. The screenshots, text messages, the financial documents Rachel had given me, the photos of Christmas dinner without me, with timestamps. Under clear, sunny skies. I printed it all. Neatly. Bound into a folder thick enough to slap reality across their faces. I also brought something else. A letter. Written by my grandfather before he passed. One Rachel had found, tucked inside old estate paperwork. It was addressed to me. In it, he wrote about how proud he was. How he admired my steadiness. My strength. How he knew one day, I'd have to stand alone against the tide. He'd left that inheritance to protect me. To give me a future they could never control. And they had tried to steal it. Memorial Day arrived. Blisteringly hot. A bright Tennessee sky blazing overhead. I pulled into Anna's driveway. The house decked out with cheap red, white, and blue bunting. Through the windows I could already see them. My parents, Anna. Uncles, aunts, cousins. Laughing, drinking, pretending everything was perfect. The second I stepped onto the lawn, the noise dulled. Conversations halted. Eyes flicked toward me, wary, calculating. Anna bounded over. A little too fast, a little too desperate. "Catherine," she cried, arms outstretched. "So glad you made it." I sidestepped her hug smoothly, holding the folder close to my side. "Let's not pretend," I said, voice low but steady. "You wanted me here. I'm here. Let's get to it." Her smile faltered. But she nodded, leading me to the backyard where picnic tables sagged under the weight of hot dogs and casseroles. My parents were waiting. "Catherine," my father said gruffly, not meeting my eyes. "We're family. We need to move past misunderstandings." I set the folder down on the table with a soft thud. "This isn't a misunderstanding," I said, flipping it open. One by one I laid the evidence out. The text, the fake excuses, the diverted inheritance. I spoke clearly, calmly, not yelling, not crying, just delivering the truth like a blade across silk. "You didn't just lie," I said, meeting each of their gazes. "You stole. You isolated me. You made me doubt my worth for years." They spluttered. Scrambled. Mom with her trembling lip. Dad with his clenched fists. Anna with her crocodile tears. But I wasn't finished. I pulled out the letter. The one from Grandpa. And I read it aloud. Every word ringing clear into the heavy summer air. By the end, there wasn't a dry eye. But none of them cried for me. They cried for themselves. For their exposure. For the shame they could no longer hide. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, standing tall against the silence. "You will return my inheritance. Every cent. With interest. You will make a public acknowledgement of what you did. Among the family you tried to deceive. If you don't," smiled. A slow, sad smile. "I will take you to court. And trust me, I have all the evidence I need to make it very, very public." Anna burst into tears. Gasped. Dad muttered threats under his breath. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I simply gathered my folder and walked away. The sunlight was brutal, unforgiving, but for the first time, it warmed me instead of burning me. Later that night, Anna texted me. A single line. "Please, don't do this. No apology. No ownership. Just fear." I didn't reply. The next morning their lawyer called. Negotiations began. And just like that, the power they'd lorded over me for years was gone. I wasn't their afterthought anymore. I was the storm they never saw coming. The settlement came faster than I expected. Within 3 weeks, their lawyer returned with an agreement. The inheritance would be restored. The family group chat would carry a formal apology penned by my father himself. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the principle. The acknowledgement that I hadn't imagined it. That the betrayal was real. And that they were finally being forced to confront it. I signed the papers in silence. My hands steady. My heart strangely calm. Summer melted into fall. And as the leaves turned amber and gold around Nashville, so did my life. I moved out of my cramped apartment into a little 2-bedroom house on the edge of the city. A place with a creaky porch and a backyard wild with blackberry vines. I planted my first garden that October, digging my hands into the cool earth, feeling for the first time in years like I was building something truly mine. The texts from my family dwindled. First they tried guilt, then silence, then distant, awkward check-ins that felt like apologies without the words. I didn't respond, not out of cruelty, but because I was finally choosing peace over performance. I realized, family isn't just the people who share your blood. It's the people who show up, the ones who choose you, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's messy. Sometimes you have to choose yourself first, to teach others how to treat you. One Saturday, I sat on my porch with a mug of coffee warming my hands, watching the sun rise slow and pink over the hills. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of rain-soaked soil and the faint sweetness of wood smoke from a neighbor's chimney. I pulled out the old photo Rachel had given me, the one of Grandpa teaching me to fish. In the picture, I was small, clutching a crooked little fishing rod, beaming up at him with pure trust, pure joy. And he was looking back at me, not at Anna, not at the crowd, me. As if he already knew the road would be hard. As if he already knew, one day, I would have to stand alone. I touched the photo gently, and whispered, "I'm okay now, Grandpa. I'm finally okay." That Christmas, I didn't sit alone. I hosted my own dinner, inviting friends, neighbors, the found family who had stood by me. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. We laughed until our ribs ached. We ate too much pie. We sang badly. We stayed too late. And as I sat there surrounded by real warmth, real love, I realized, sometimes, the family you lose makes room for the life you deserve. Sometimes, the best revenge is building a life so beautiful, full, so fiercely yours, that the people who once broke you don't even recognize the woman you've become.